very insightful conversation, and I have taken copious notes. But I think that what this conversation has revealed are the many dimensions, and therefore the many people in the various capacities of their lives, how they are impacted by public transportation. And we can start with the workers, and the fact that they are essential workers, and by the way, should not be sacrificial workers. And that means understanding what they need in terms of being in the workplace in a safe environment and giving them the support that they deserve, as well as the chairman and I always talk about, recognizing the dignity of that work and the value of that work, and recognizing it in every way, including pay and benefits. It means understanding the significance of, and Mr. Cohen, you said it so well, we have to pay attention to racial equity, because to neglect the reality of the need to pay attention to racial inequity based on long-standing inequities. But thinking of it in terms of also the opportunities, be it for Mr. Haley in terms of what you're doing with this transit authority or the Chamber of Commerce, and what this can do in investment in public transit that is about job creation, building up the economy, building up productivity, building on the cultural institutions of a community, which always have an impact on the well-being and the quality of life of any community. Access to arts, access to sports, access to those things, and hopefully that are public spaces, Professor, that create a quality of life that every person should be entitled to receive. The points that you've made, Professor, about public spaces, I think, is so important, and I appreciate the point that you were making also about thinking of the realities of sidewalks, street lights, as being part of the transit ecosystem. If that mother or father can't walk that stroller because the sidewalks are uneven or falling apart, and she's got a child in a stroller and a toddler, well, that's going to mean that will take at least twice as much time for her to get up, get down, and hopefully have somebody help her with the stroller to get to the bus stop. Lights, and what that means in terms of the safety for both the workers and the folks who use the system. So I think this has been an incredible group to really highlight all of the facets and all of the relevancy of an investment in public transportation, which again, infrastructure, and the chairman and I have talked about this. Infrastructure, you know, it's a fancy word for just how do you get to where you need to go? That's really what it's about. How do you get to where you need to go? Hopefully without struggle. And with some level of ease, because usually where people need to go is they need to go to work, their children need to go to school, they need to go to the grocery store, they need to go to the place where they worship, they need to go to a sports game from time to time. So I appreciate you all for this conversation and all the work you do, and I plan to highlight it, and of course the President thanks you for the work that you are doing as a great model for what our country will and can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kamala. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This is really enlightening.
The crisis in India right now concerning COVID, and what lessons do you take from that?
There is no question that it is a great tragedy what we're witnessing in terms of the loss of life. And as I have said before, and I will say again, we as a country have made a commitment to the people of India to support them, and we've made already a commitment in terms of a dollar amount that will go to PPE and a number of other things. But it is tragic, and you know, my prayers go to the people and the suffering. That's the blatant suffering that is happening.
Does it give you any concern about how their experience could affect what's happening in the United States concerning COVID?
Well, I mean, we are all part of a world community. And to the extent that any of us as human beings who have any level of compassion see suffering anywhere around the world, it impacts all of us. It impacts us all.
Could I answer that briefly too? This president and vice president have re-engaged with the world already. Paris Climate Accords, re-entry into the World Health Organization. We all know that the World Health Organization, with the U.S. as the leader, eradicated smallpox, essentially with public health, eradicated polio, kept Ebola virus from spreading here and elsewhere. So we know they are committed to reversing the policy of the last 4 years to disengage from the world, and that will only mean more good news for a terribly suffering country of India now.
We'll take one more question.
Madam Vice President, regarding infrastructure, as you're continuing to push the American Jobs Plan, what's your message and how are you going to approach Republican voters or voters in general who may be skeptical of this expanded definition of infrastructure? Because the conversation here right now was focused on infrastructure as, you know, hitting all corners of life, but a lot of voters feel that it should just be roads and bridges.
I am willing to bet you that when the people of Cincinnati get on those buses being driven by Troy Miller's members, they do not ask, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I'm willing to bet you. When we are talking about those moms who need to walk on the sidewalk to get to the bus, pushing a stroller, walking a toddler, they are not identifying their problem through the lens of who they voted for in the last election. When we are looking at the capacity to grow the economic vitality of communities, including small businesses, and increase the productivity of a workforce, much less expand the workforce, what we know is that the reality is that people, regardless of who they vote for and which party they're registered with, that's what they want. And that's what they want to see their government focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can you speak to your priority for broadband, Madam Vice President?
It is a high priority for me, and it is something I've worked on for quite some time. It is an extension of this conversation, frankly. I gave a speech yesterday talking about this. You will appreciate this, Chairman, I was with our former colleagues, Maggie Hassan and Jean Shaheen in New Hampshire, visiting the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and met with some workers there who were part of a legacy of folks at that co-op who helped build electrification for rural New Hampshire. And it was on the basis of the work, literally the physical basis of the work they did as a result of the 1936 Rural Electrification Act, which was about saying, let's get electricity to everybody, to say now, let's get broadband to everybody, because it's the same point. Kids can't do their homework without access to the internet. You know, some of us had Encyclopedia Britannica. Well, let me tell you, that is a day gone by. Our seniors, we now know the capacity of access and affordable access to broadband to bring health care through telemedicine. Again, our small businesses. It has become very clear for a small business to actually survive, much less thrive, they need access to high-speed internet to be able to move their product, to advertise their product, and to engage with their customers. So it crosses all levels, all communities. And you know, in the past with electrification, I think it was one of the great examples of the role and responsibility of the federal government to meet the needs of the people where they are and to invest in America in a way that we will be competitive going forward. Broadband is the next example of that.
And do you see any bridges in this area qualifying for that top 10 list?
Well, I can tell you that I know about the Brent Spence Bridge, and it is a very important bridge in America, and I am sure that there will be a lot of conversation about its qualifications for some support out of the American Jobs Plan. Thank you.